Hello there YouTubers, welcome back to my channel, Workshop Fun. Today I'd just like to post the final update on my welder. I'm going to show you basically the final little touches that I did with brass work and things like that, and I'm also going to talk about the terminals and the cable lugs and thumb screws and how important they are on welding machines. This is pretty much any welding machine that has the thumb screw with threads. Okay, well let's get started anyway about the thumb screws. I'm going to bring you over here. Now, I'd like to talk to you today about using incorrect thumb screws on your welder. I bought this welder second hand, and the guy was a nice guy, but he'd been using this thumb screw or hand screw, whatever, on the welder, and it's a 10mm. This here has your British thread, and I think it's 5/8, equivalent of 10mm. Loose fit though, if you use a 10mm. Anyway, he'd been using this obviously for some time, and he'd actually, by doing that, been causing arcing on the thread, and he had ruined one of the threads on one of the terminals. And of course it was the most commonly used terminal. It was the high amps, low volts terminal. And as a result of the slop, every time he was obviously welding, that was causing arcing within the thread because of the loose slop. And it basically just slowly deteriorated the thread. So I just want to stress to anybody out there who's using their welder, make sure you use the correct thumb screws on the terminals, because if you don't, you will wear your brass thread out in the end. And that's exactly what he did. So what I was faced with is, one, replace this whole terminal, which I didn't really want to do, or two, turn it down to a smaller diameter thread, which is a bit of a nuisance too, but that's what I did. To make up for the loss of contact with the thread though, I made my own thumb screw, and as you can see, I made it to the correct thread of the terminal, 8mm, and I made sure that this thumb screw had a bigger surface than the one that this hand screw has of brass, so you got a lot of contact. The other thing I found too is really, I'm just going to screw this back on. Oh, actually, I won't. Really, when you're using the wrong thumb screw too, what happens is it also corrodes the surface here because of the slop once again, and so eventually your cable lugs that are soldered or crushed onto your leads, they're basically not sitting flat on the surface of this terminal here, and that's also arcing as well, and it creates over time even worse surface, and eventually you're getting very little contact with your cable lug which powers your lead, and it's all just really negative effects on your welder. So anyway, I cleaned all this up, filed all the terminals down with a pencil file until they were getting a lot of contact on the cable lugs, and now I'm getting great welding performance. It's really stepped it up, it's nice. And stepping down to this thread, because I've still got a good diameter of contact with the brass, I haven't really lost any power. I tried it out and I was still able to blow holes in 5mm thick steel with the rod, so really there's no loss of power there. And of course this thread here, this is the high voltage low amperage terminal. Because it wasn't as commonly used, it was fine, the thread was mint, so I just cleaned the thread and filed the surface through the 10mm thing away, and I made this matching thread thumb screw. So and once again I made it out of brass. So anyway, that's my little stress to you guys. Just make sure you have matching threads with your thumb screws on your welders, otherwise you're going to have some pretty bad consequences. I was just lucky that I got a lathe and I could machine some things up, and you know, I was able to get that right down to a nice thread size, and I got past all the corrosion that the arcing had done. So I was fortunate I could do that. So the other thing I've done on this welder is, I created a nice brass thumb screw up on top of the power box here. Got this really nice metal cable lug, and that's all finished now. Like, I installed it and wired everything up again and made it all nice and safe. I made matching brass little screws or thumb screws for the nameplate to match what I'd done here on the rectifier. And on the rectifier I made this nice copper plus and minus sign. I made that in my mill, and I beveled all the inner edges so it just makes it look a little bit more professional. And I got rid of that horrible little alloy one that I'd made. It just sort of steps this up to make it look like a more professional unit, which quite frankly it is. It's a very good unit. So the overall effect of the welder now is, sorry, I'm just putting you back on the tripod. The overall effect of the welder now is really good. There you go. It's quite a neat setup, and it works extremely good. And I haven't done heaps of welding with it yet, but I've done some pretty heavy duty welding and some really light welding, and it's just performed really good. So basically it's all a complete unit now, and I'm pretty much not going to really do anything more to it now except for use it. Anyway, if anybody has any more questions about this, please feel free to ask, and if you like this video, please subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed the final update. Thank you very much. Bye.